Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everyone, wherever you are. It gives me great pleasure to welcome our guest for today, Lawan Smith. She has been working on a couple of exams and aced those exams, both the CAPM and the PMP. And I'm extremely proud of her resilience and going strong all the way from CAPM right through PMP. How do you feel about your accomplishments, Lawan?
I feel fantastic, Bill.
Woo! I do as well. I have to be honest. I got really excited just getting your message on, was it Friday?
Yes.
And yeah, it's really exciting. So, Lawan, tell us how this whole thing started for you because you decided you were going to take the CAPM. What prompted that?
So I wanted to get familiar with the PMI language as well as, how they formulate their questions. So I was like, well, let me just take something that's on the quote unquote junior level first to kind of get my feet wet. I haven't taken a certification class or exam in years. So I wanted to start off with something small and then kind of go from there.
Gotcha. And how did you hear about the CAPM? Was that at work? Was it friends? Do you recall?
So it was at work eons ago, but it was always looked upon as a junior level exam, but it's not.
Hmm.
So it was, to me, it was equally as challenging as the PMP.
Wow. Wow. And it was a little bit in a different kind of way, more challenging. Can you tell us in what way it was as challenging or more challenging?
Being able to understand the jargon and the construction of the questions with PMI because it's not asked in regular English, the best way to put it. So, sometimes it's a little choppy with the wording and, noun comes after the verb or it's something crazy. And it's just a different way of the questions that we are set up. So, with the CAPM, it was more so, when I took it, was more so onto what process are you in, very it was somewhat rote for the most
Okay.
part. But the PMP was definitely a mindset, vanilla flavored, as you would say. So it was more challenging because you had to read and comprehend at the same time with this time frame. So it was, and both
Wow.
were time, but they were just very challenging.
Wow. So Lawan, before we jump into more PMP stuff, we have some friends who are taking the CAPM and they've got a tight timeline. They need to get it done by July 24th. What advice would you give anyone who's trying to do the CAPM piece?
So for the CAPM piece, you definitely want to study your processes. Um, there may be a few formulas that are referenced to, but it's more so knowing how to apply them versus knowing the formula itself.
Mm,
And for myself, even though I did do the brain dump, it wasn't necessary to kind of say, what's where and all that good stuff. Is once you know it, you know it.
mm.
So for the CAPM, yeah, definitely.
So just focus on PMBOK 6. Nothing so crazy like a whole lot of agile. It wasn't heavy agile, was it?
No, it was not.
All right. Well, let's go into the piece everyone is waiting for. And I want to give a shout out to our friends who are here to celebrate with us because it's really more like a celebration in addition to, whenever any of our friends get certified, we get mad excited. It's like a party. And I think the image on the screen kind of depicts how we're feeling. We're on cloud nine for you right now. We're really excited and we're buzzing. We're just absolutely excited. So, Shauna, thanks for coming. Darian, Sarah, Vivian, pleasure to have you here celebrating with us. But let's jump straight into how you prepared for the exam and how you found Praizion. How did you find out about my training and the company?
So I found out through YouTube.
Mm.
I was already doing some self studies on different other things I was working on, and I kept seeing you, and I was like, okay, what is this guy all about? He's always there. He's always posting the video, and I was like, look at all these certs. He has to know something. So that's how I found out about Breakside. And I was like, well, let me stick with this and see where I can go from there. So
Wow,
that's
good
how I found
choice.
out.
Good choice. I'm really excited. Well, thank you, people at Google, YouTube. We appreciate the publicity. And then you came on the program for CAPM. And honestly, Lawan, when you came on the program for CAPM, in my mind, I'm like, she's actually PMP level. Why is she doing CAPM? Then you explained. Then I understood why. And you went to CAPM, you killed it. And without missing a beat, the very next week, there you were again in the re-audit doing the PMP. I'm
Yes.
like, wow. And then you were coming for all of the classes, all of the courses. So tell us, as you joined this journey with us, had you any previous experience from a different class, or was this your first PMP and CAPM rodeo?
So I had previous training in October, maybe in September, October, a 10-day in-person, well, a 10-day Zoom call type class. And it was in the middle of cheer and football season. So I was being that cheer football mom as well. So sometimes I was actually in my vehicle trying to take class as well as transporting kids. So it was a lot going on at the same time. Needless to say, the information did not stick from what I was trained during that 2-week time frame, but I had already started my self-study about 8 months prior. So it gave me a little bit of grounding, but I still didn't have that warm, fuzzy feeling. So I was like, I needed something more.
Gotcha. And can you tell us what was kind of different between the way our classes rolled and the way the other ones that you were on? Because we did online live via Zoom, but was there anything different that helped you better absorb the content?
The learning management system, the daily Scrum calls, the explanations in layman's terms and examples helped out a lot. I think that was everything. And then I was more determined, because it was my second time around in training, to make sure I can absorb the information. Because you thought I was very, I was very, I want to say aggressive, but I was very determined.
Yes.
To get the CAPM done on one try. So I wanted to make sure that I had everything that I could possibly know or needed to know before I sat for the exam.
Gotcha. Good. And you worked so hard. I remember calling you into so many immersions. I've lost count. Do you remember how many immersions you were in? I can't remember.
3 or 4.
Wow. Okay. And not to mention a lot of these ad hocs. Now you're the person giving back to us, but we had a few of those lessons learned where we called other people, didn't we? Yes. So you were able to hear from those, and you also gave us your CAPM lessons learned way back. So this is really coming full circle. Now let's talk about the day of the exam. You drove to the test center. Did you check it out before the day?
I did. I checked it out a few days before just to make sure I knew where I was going, because it was in a different state, different traffic pattern. I'm in the DMV, and traffic can be horrendous. So I knew going into that area, I'd be going into the heart of traffic, and my test time was at the same time as rush hour traffic.
Wow.
Well, major traffic.
Wow.
So I did leave early for the day of the exam. I left at 7, and I got there at like 7:45. My exam was at 10:30.
Okay.
MapQuest took me through the back roads. I went through the neighborhood. So I was like, oh, this is interesting. This wasn't the way I came, but I ran with it. So it worked. So I was there quite early.
Wow. Okay. And you just kind of chilled and did a little bit of light studying, or what? I
chilled. I actually went for a walk within the parking lot, just a quick up and back. Just because I just got so nervous the last minute. And then I walked in probably about 9 o'clock to see if I can check in early. And they said, we're not ready for you until 10. So I just sat back down, kept the air conditioning going, and just read over my notes here and there till it was 10 o'clock. Well, till it was like 9:59. So I can go downstairs and be there at 10 o'clock.
Wow. Okay. Did you have any snacks, any food you took with you going in? And if so, what did they ask you to do with it?
I did not bring anything. I ate a hearty breakfast before I left the
Okay.
house,
Good.
and actually on the way, I had a hearty breakfast along the way. But
Nice.
I did not bring snacks, even though I probably could have. But I was good. I was good.
Nice. Okay. So when you go into the exam hall, finally, they do all the dog and pony show, the bar, the swiping it to make sure
Oh
you're not.
yeah. Oh yeah. This one was more aggressive than the other one. I actually had to take my
Uh-oh.
glasses off
Wow.
and pat myself down. I was like, okay. So turn your pockets inside out.
Airport style. Yeah.
Yes, I was like, okay. Anything else? I'm gonna lift my hair. So yeah, it was very thorough.
Wow. Okay. And when you got to the seat, did you notice any cameras above you, to the side, or not?
Yeah, there was a camera right above me.
Yeah, yeah, they're always looking. Big Brother's always looking. So
Hmm.
you hit start, and do you go through the tutorial?
Yes, absolutely.
And what exactly is a tutorial about?
So it teaches you how to navigate through the screens, how to do the strikeout, highlight, and all that, because it's not your typical um, way of highlighting and striking through things. So it's good
Mhm.
to know to take that 7 minutes. It
Mm,
doesn't count against you. Um, so you know how to move through the screens to make better use of your time.
okay, okay. So you watch the tutorial and then showtime. Question one. How do you feel when you see the first question? Do you recall feeling any ways about it?
Absolutely, my brain left my body. I I was just like, what?
Oh
I
dear.
said, wait a minute. Let me just regroup,
Oh
take a
dear.
deep breath, and get into this stuff. So yeah.
Wow. Wow. And tell us what the nature was. Was it long? Was the language esoteric? Tell us kind of what created that effect. Why was it like that?
It was like that because the language was more garbled than it was on the CAPM. At least in my mind, it could have been the stress, it could have been the anxiety, it could have been excitement, but it just I had to have read that first question about a good 4 times, and I was like, "What am I doing?" But it wasn't registering in my head, so I was like, "Okay,
Wow.
let me read a little faster and just pick something."
Mm,
So I did that for the first one, and I was like, "Okay." Once I got past the first one, second one was a little bit easier, and then I finally got into a good rhythm.
mm. So kind of like gobbles, lost in translation, kind of with a few red herrings thrown in and all
Yeah.
that.
Yes.
Wow, wow. What's the average length of a question? If someone was to say, what's the average length of a question on the exam in terms of lines long across the screen of average size?
Average, I would say about 3 lines,
Oh, okay.
at
Okay.
least on mine. But there was one that was about a good 6 or 7.
Mm,
But again, don't let the short lengths fool you.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
So
very
it's
interesting.
it looks it's got a lot of teeth, but it's just like it's all a lot of noise, but not as intimidating as it looks, huh? When you are able
Right.
to cut through it. Mm. So one of the things I like to do, I like taking our friends down memory lane. I want us to play a little game, and the little game, Lawan, is going to be possible, impossible, just about in terms of the length. So I want you to just have a quick look at this.
Ooh,
Just about, too long,
I would say too long.
too long. Gotcha. Good. Okay. Let's take a look at something a little bit shorter. What about something this long?
That's it, just about.
Just about. Good, good. That's good to know. Good to know. Awesome. So when you get to the end of section one, did you check the time or did you go on a break? How did that pan out?
All of the above, yes. I checked the time because it's a countdown clock. So which kind of threw me off. Well, I mean, it did kind of throw me off for a second. I was like, wait a minute, I know I started here. Why am I there? So it was the anxiety was getting to me. And I said, I'm definitely taking my break. But before I took my break, I reviewed any questions that I had flagged.
Nice. Good. And do you recall how long you took for the first section? Was it like 1 hour, 2 hours? Do you recall?
It was about an hour.
About an hour. Okay. Okay. Good. So you were really hitting it in good time. We got a question from our friend Vivian. So going back to what I just showed you, Vivian was asking, is the font, about this size on the screen, or is it smaller on the exam? Is it a bit smaller?
Oh no, it was larger. It was
Oh,
a nice large screen as well. So
wow.
it was perfect for me. I mean, I don't wear glasses for reading. So it was perfectly fine for me.
Gotcha. So it wouldn't be an exaggeration to say it covered the entire screen like this.
No, that'd be just about right.
Gotcha. Good. Okay. Well, thanks for the question. So you took your break. Did you feel refreshed coming back from that first break?
Yes.
Okay. Then you came back and jumped into part 2. Did you notice a difference, a shift in the question difficulty between part 1 and part 2? Was it pretty much the same?
It's pretty much the same.
And did you notice a flavor that maybe gravitated more towards one side of the agile predictive spectrum, or is it just a mixed bag and agnostic and hard to determine sometimes?
It seemed more agile than it did predictive for me. And then as far as like the wording, it was, to me, I don't know, it was just my nerves, but the wording just seemed the same across the board. It didn't seem to let up, but I just kept going through it.
Wow. And is it such that the mantra, or I should say the theme, is always, you are a project manager on a project? Is it pretty,
Yes.
because I've heard that it's pretty much like that across the board.
Right.
Wow.
Yeah. Like, you are here, blah, 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 blah. What should you do next? You are here, blah, 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 blah. What should you have done first? How do you prevent this?
Wow. So I want to put you on the spot. I don't give my PMP champions any notice of what I'm going to ask them. I never do these the same way. So my question to you is, if you're going to take your project manager kind of questions that are problem to solve, right? And then the your project manager kind of questions versus you are here in terms of maybe on a timeline of what you're doing, or you are here in terms of a phase that you're in, or in terms of a process group that you're in, right? Those kind of questions. And then if you're going to choose from the questions that say there's risks and there's issues and there's change, and last but not least, questions that are definition oriented, purely definition oriented. Let's start with definition oriented, just very rough, Lawan, not to overthink it. And we want people to know that exams differ, that's for sure. But we just want to get a kind of feel for definitions. And we're talking more like ITTOs and that kind of stuff. What percentage would you say was definition purely in your mind?
In my mind, 1%.
Wow. Oh my goodness. Those ITTO aficionados need to go look for another job. Oh my gosh. All right. What about change type questions? Just rough.
Probably about 3%.
Wow. This is very insightful. What about problems to solve?
Issues, probably a good 20. Oh, issues, would that be the
Let's do
problems?
issues first. Yeah, you're right. And you're right. They're very closely related. Yeah. I guess we could bunch them together: issues, problems, and even impediments. Thank you for that. So let's talk about the impediment family, all this stuff. What would you attribute to problems and issues and all that stuff, obstacles, blockers, stuff?
Oh, that was a good 40%.
Wow. This is so good to know. So good to get your perspective. Thank you for that. I know it did take some permutation and going way back in time. What about risks?
Risk probably about 20%. I'm trying to get to 100.
Uh-huh,
About
uh-huh.
20.
Well, we can always assign some other categories, like we can assign stakeholder, but let's talk about you're here. What comes next in the process? Or what comes next in the phase? Or,
Oh, yeah. That was definitely a good 50. All that that bottom box,
yeah.
you're here, the timeline, phase, and process groups, that's actually over 50
Wow.
for those. Yeah.
Wow. This is
Yeah.
so helpful to know. So things like your project manager developing a charter, or your project manager developing part of the plan, or your project manager doing validating the scope with the customer is checking the deliverable, or your people are doing the QC, that kind of stuff, huh?
Yes.
Wow. Wow. No wonder people talk about the 49 processes still can help you, even though it's not rote definition, but
Mhm.
knowing how they flow can help. So Lawan, can you just shed some light on what anyone who is looking at taking the exam should do to get as good as you did in those areas? What do they need to do, in your opinion?
For the 49 processes, wow. You have to study, well, for myself, I studied inside and out, up and down. So I needed to know where it was within the process chart, how to actually apply it, because it's not in a logical order per se. And then knowing what is contained within each group. And then what does it take to get to each group? So even though the ITTOs, you didn't ask, it wasn't a specific definition, but you had to know what documentation or inputs were required in order to get to that stage, so that you know where to go to the next stage. So
Wow.
yeah.
Wow. So you still do need to have a good idea of the flow, even if we're not talking about cramming ITTOs, but you should know that in order to do develop project management plan, I should have my charter, for example, or to do validate scope, I should have my deliverable, that kind of thing.
Yes.
Wow. This is what I guess makes the exam hard. So looking at this, Lawan, if you were going to mentor me as a student, give me some words to help me know what I'm looking at in this table, because assuming that I've crammed it, I'm hearing that you could still go all the way down to the basement, but it's not going to help you that much. So tell me what exactly I need to do with this table.
So with this table, it's best to know what each process is in your own words, because you may not see the exact wording on the exam.
This is very helpful. So know this in your own words instead of just doing parrot fashion cramming, right?
Right.
Okay. And then what else?
Oh, the mnemonics, that helps. I mean, for me, for the CAPM part, that helped to train my brain to know where things were. And then for the PMP, I pretty much knew where they were. It was a matter of figuring out, okay, where am I in this process on the chart, and how do I go from there? So I kind of already knew the chart within my head. I could visualize it and go from there.
Gotcha. So it's not a waste of time when I'm going through the processes and what exactly they are, right?
Not a waste of time at all. Very important.
That's great. Thank you. And then as far as the inputs and outputs, I have a method whereby I recommend knowing the major outputs, not everything, but the major outputs. So instead of cramming work performance information, work performance reports, maybe just know the things that are more unique. Is that good advice?
Very much so. That's also how I studied with the ittos,
Mm.
the spreadsheet, old school highlighter, pen to paper, highlighting the unique processes, inputs, outputs, tools, techniques. So yes, definitely
Gotcha.
helps.
Gotcha. All right. Let's go to an artifact that we have here, Lawan, that I would love for you to speak to. We have something that you have sent in, and I want you to talk to us about what I'm about to bring up on the screen. We've got a couple of whiteboards here that I want you to tell us about. So let's see this one. It has some X's on the days. What was this? Was this the big countdown or what?
So that one was for the CAPM. Yes.
Ah, wow. Wow. So this is like a 30 days out kind of thing and
Yep.
studying. Wow.
How many hours I studied, as well as I was taking a class at the same time. My daughter was helping me to keep everything up. So she was helping me to keep up my whiteboard.
Wow.
And
Wow.
then when we had class, because I was studying every day, outside of the daily scrum calls, outside of our calls during class. So as you can see, you may see 1 hour study here, or like in March, you'll see 1 hour study. It
Mm.
was a Sunday, and then
Mm.
I think I had 4 hours. So yeah, I would, write it down there, but I also kept it in my notebook as well.
Wow. So if I do a very quick computation, the momentum from CAPM, you are coming in with at least 50 hours of studying on top of the PMP that you did. So you've been building momentum with this syllabus for quite a while, and it shows that the power of momentum, it just compounds, and boom, when you hit it hard. So this is very helpful for people who feel downtrodden by hearing stories of, I got certified in 1 day. You got these people on social media saying they got certified in a week or 2 weeks. Get real with the program. You got to put in the time. You got to put in the effort. And you are an experienced program manager and project manager. So it's not as though this world is totally new to you. So what would you say to the people who feel, oh, I need to get certified in like 2 weeks or 3 weeks because everyone else did? What would you say to me if I was a student trying to get certified in a week or two?
Don't get your hopes up. Put in at least 30 days of time, because life happens. You may think you can go hard in 2 weeks and get it done. I knew I had a whole lot of life going on, so I gave myself 6 months to put things in perspective and different things I had going on. So if you think you can do it in 2 weeks, more power to you. But reality is, for myself, no, you need at least a good 30 days minimum with absolutely no distractions. And you have to have a study plan of your own.
So tell us, Lawan, your study plan, you were very consistent. I was so impressed because I'm 3 hours behind and I was doing a red eye trying to finish a book. And it just pops up at 3 a.m. And I'm like, my goodness, these folks aren't playing. This is 6 East Coast. So I hop on the call and I begin giving you some last minute advice. But I noticed all through the timeline, you and our friend Shauna, you were getting on the calls in the morning. And I want to say I'm really impressed and honestly inspired to do what I do even the more, just to see your level of dedication. So what kind of timetable would you advise a newbie to have? Let me explain what I mean, Lawan, just to take everyone back down memory lane. So this whole exam, PMP, it has agile, it has predictive, it has hybrid, it has people, it has process, it has business, it has PMBOK 6, it has PMBOK 7, it has the agile practice guide. How on earth did you develop a kind of schedule? Were you following the PMP outline? Were you following PMBOK 7? Were you following PMBOK 6? Give us the magic recipe.
The magic recipe is a good gumbo. That's the way to put it.
Lump it all.
Gumbo. A little bit of everything.
Oh,
so what I did, I saw on YouTube how different people had, different ways that they studied, as far as saying, they wrote down things every day, things that they wanted to remember for their brain dump. They had a calendar that they worked from. They had their own little plan they put together. So I kind of gleaned from that. And for doing the CAPM, my study time was more rigorous than my PMP study time. And I think it was because I was still getting familiar with the terms, definitions.
Yeah.
So it needed to make sense to me first. And I was determined for it to make sense to me first before I would actually sit down for the test. So I was actually writing in my notebook, old school, lots of handwritten notes, watching videos, watching your videos, because I was like, consistency is key. And persistence in prayer, because this stuff was difficult. So yes, I had a few moments. We had a couple of talks, but yeah. But the notebook, my whiteboard, note cards, old school note cards that you can purchase from anywhere. I took them, I cut them in half because I knew it was going to be so many definitions to save money. And I would write down all definitions, just write down everything as I was going along. And then that was getting me through the CAPM part. And then from there, once I had that pretty solid, once I started studying for the PMP, that's when I started to group the information by domain, group it by the models and things like that. So it was definitely a gumbo for that recipe of what makes, the best study method is to mix it all up, a little bit of everything.
I'm going to hold up a few publications and you can tell me helpful, meh, otherwise.
Very helpful, especially the Gold Zone. Absolutely necessary. Reads like a microwave manual. Reads like an elementary book after you read the 6th edition, but it's good to know because it has a couple more processes into there as far as how it's grouped.
Okay. I threw a book at you folks at the last minute, a few months before your exam. Did you even get to look at this one?
I started it, but I didn't get a chance to get all the way through.
And I started the class with Agile anyway. So you folks were pre-cooked with Agile and you had 2 doses. What about this?
Necessary.
Good,
yes.
good. And there was one more book I threw at you folks just before you took the exam. I don't know if you saw it.
Yes, I have that one as well. That's the one I printed out and started going through.
Oh, wow. So there's so much stuff, Lawan. I want to know your gumbo recipe. Did it have a rhyme? Did it have some titration? How much okra was in there? How much rice was in there? How did you titrate all of these books? Tell us.
So with all that information, so my roux, because I do cook. So my roux, my base, get the flavors in there. That was definitely the 6th edition, the PMBOK 6th edition, as well as the Agile Practice Guide. Then from there, I started, building my flavors. You got to cook your meats first. And get your meat tender. So throwing the meat onto the seasonings of the roux, I did the immersion handbook because it gives you that concentrated flavor, like getting a little bouillon cube and putting it in there. So that bouillon cube brought the flavor out of the roux and the meat that was stewed in that gumbo pot.
Oh, yeah.
And then from there, that's when I started looking at the videos more and then using information from the learning management system, those videos that went more in depth to kind of put in the shrimp, and then you have to
My
have the
favorite.
Cajun seasoning and everything else,
There you
and
go. Oh dear,
put a
making
little
me
bit of
hungry.
red hot, put a little bit of hot sauce.
Now you're making me hungry. I feel like eating a PMP and the Agile Guide, and well, but yeah, it's the base, but the seasoning brought it out. But it's a great analogy. I like that analogy because you can read all these books, but if the flavoring isn't coming out, if it's not popping, then you just got a bunch of stuff, and it's not really the best until you get the flavoring to pop. So that's a very good lesson. Now let's go back to the exam because people are wondering, where's Phil taking us? So we're coming back to part 2, Lawan, and you get to the end of part 2 and you take the second break.
Yes.
And
yes.
Did you just go for a little walk, or did they allow you to go outside of the room? How does that look?
So for both breaks, I was allowed to leave the room. When I came back, so my first break was my longest break. I think I was just so frazzled. My first break was my longest break. But I had like a minute left of my break, but I was watching the clock once I got out. My second break wasn't as long. It's probably like 6 minutes or so, because at that point, I was just wanting to get it done.
Wow. You were tired, were you? Or just fed up with the whole thing and just wanting to finish it?
I think I had a good momentum. And so I was like, I want to get in there. I want to get it done and be just finished with it. I wasn't tired until I left the facility altogether. But I powered through it, especially that last portion, that third part.
Wow. So part 3, how many minutes did you have left when you got to the end? 90. Are you kidding me?
Nope. Because I timed it, because I was like, Will is going to ask me this, and I'm going to make sure I remember. I had 90.
How did you pull that off, Lawan? Are you a natural fast reader?
Yes, I am.
Wow. So when you're reading a question, do you read it straight through, or do you go kind of to the end and then go back? Like you have some of our friends who they swear by reading the end first. And what's your method?
Oh, you don't want to do that. Because sometimes it doesn't make sense, the answers that they give versus the question that they ask. You don't want to do that. That's my opinion. You definitely want to read the question through. For myself, I just read it through one time. And before I got to the answers, I would think, what would I choose as an answer before I read over the options?
Good. We got a question from our friend Vivian, and I've been waiting to get an answer to this one. Earned value management, if you were going to give it a number of questions on the exam, what would it be?
2.
Wow. And if you're going to say a question where you needed one of these, did you actually need to calculate any of these at all? You can just say yes or no. We don't need to talk about the details. So
yeah, to calculate, no.
Wow. So was it more like, this is a number, what does it mean? The grand scheme of the question, kind of like, here's a 0.6 or here's a 1.2.
Right. Yeah.
What does it mean? Okay. That's good to know. So just 2. So we have a lot of people on the ledge saying, I don't want to fly. I'm scared of earned value. I got to go look for parachute. Well, there's actually no need to jump or be afraid, because you don't have to. It's not even calculation. So what about things like expected monetary value, decision tree analysis, network diagrams, forward pass, backward pass, any of that stuff?
Not that I recall.
Wow. This is so insightful. So at the end, 90 minutes left, Lawan. 90 minutes.
That's what I said. Yeah, because I had checked twice. I was like, wait a minute. Carry 2. Yeah, no, that's 90. Yeah.
You got done in 140 minutes. That's 2 hours, 20 minutes. Wow. I need you to please, I know some of our friends are going to be consulting you. help them, sure, teach them. In fact, I might be calling you to some other classes to teach the Lawan method and how you read. How did you get so quick in reading?
Funny story, I used to read the dictionary when I was younger for fun. And one of my interests growing up was etymology, learning where the words come from.
Oh,
So that was
okay.
kind of like one of my passions, weird thing. So being a fast reader wasn't a natural thing for me, but I eventually learned to read fast because I wanted to know where that word came from, what does it mean?
Wow.
So that's how I learned to read fast, and then interpreting different languages because I took French and Spanish. So
Oh, okay.
being able to do that, and at one point in my learning career, as far as being like in high school, I was literally taking French, Spanish, and English back to back. So
Wow.
I had to be able to translate and understand between the different languages. And I'm American, so English was my first language, but not my best language. So I had to pick up the pace in
Wow.
reading things, and so that helped me out.
Wow. What an interesting story. Thanks for sharing that. So you get to the end of the exam. Was there any trepidation in hitting that end button, the final button? Did you feel nervous?
No, I was like, okay, I did my review. I flagged the ones that I need to review, and I'm like, I pressed the button, and it just stuck. I guess it was calculating or something, and I was like, don't tell me it cut off. Don't tell me it cut off. But I was like, what is going on? And then it popped up and it said, congratulations, you have
Wow.
received. And I was like, oh, okay,
I did it.
okay. And I'm thinking, don't scream, don't scream. Okay, all right, what do I do next? And making sure I didn't, stand up too soon and then terminate
Yeah.
the exam or whatever. So I was like, okay, let me raise my hand and then, follow procedure.
Wow.
So yeah.
Wow. Wow. Let me ask you for a few final insights. This is going to go very quick. So you've already told us about the books and how you studied and so on. Is there anything that you would do differently if you were to do it all over again, starting from the beginning of CAPM to where we are now?
What would I have done differently? Nothing. Not for myself, because I was very determined, and I put in a lot of hours, more than what was on that board as well as the other board. It didn't capture all of the hours, but yeah, I wouldn't have done anything differently.
Wow. So talking of the second board, let's take a look at this one. So this is the PMP, and we can see, wow, 6 hours of studying, 4 hours of studying, mock exam. My goodness, as my mentor, John Maxwell, he says, success is not determined by dumb luck, growth, it has to be planned. Don't rely on dumb luck. This is definitely not dumb luck. This is planning like a good project manager should. It even says planner. You used it for the purpose it was created. Oh my gosh. And you even have the mock exams and you documented your scores. I am so proud of you, Lawan. You got the 130 question test, the 180, the 180. And honestly, I could tell just from your engagement that you were not one of those kid in the candy store kind of folks who want to study everything, the buzz of the day that everyone is saying on social media, go read this, go do this. You didn't add a whole lot of stuff, too many things. The Praizion stuff is even, to be quite honest, it's too much as it is, but you can pick the flavors you want. And if audio works for you, did you do any of the audios as
Yeah,
you were studying?
I did that as well. I did that more so towards the end, probably the last couple of weeks. I started listening to the audio more because I understood what I was listening to.
Mm. So we had the podcast, we had the 20 CDs, which was condensed to 20 hours of audio. You did all those too?
Did all those too. Check the box.
Wow. 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 I'm so inspired. I am so excited. And we're going to be working on more stuff because PMP is great and it's a good building block for many other things to come. Let's talk about the agile on the exam, though. One of the things people are scared about this exam when it comes to agile is they think the agile practice guide, where's my agile practice guide? They think the agile practice guide, where you have Crystal and FDD and TDD, they
And
think it's
XP
gonna
and all that.
all
Mm,
that. Did
yeah,
it? Did you even see anything? Nothing.
no.
So a lot of fear is just unfounded. I don't know why people think all this stuff is going to eat them alive on the exam. Whereas what they should be focusing on, based on what we've discussed, is know the process inside out, know what you're doing, know what you're getting, know the what's in it for me factor. And then I would say know your Scrum at least. Was Kanban very prominent, or the whole flow-based agile thing?
There was a couple of them in there.
Okay, not so much. Okay. So really it's mindset, your agile manifesto
Absolutely. Yes.
in different ways. Gotcha.
Mhm.
Gotcha. Well, I want to ask our friends on the call, if you do have any questions, now will be a perfect time for you to ask our PMP guru. Eric, it's good to see you. If anyone has got questions, feel free to unmute and ask away. Questions, concerns. Anything standing in
Okay.
between you?
Yeah, I have some few questions. First of all, congratulations, Lawan.
Thank you.
That was a major one, and I could relate to your achievement because Phil knows it was a similar thing that happened to me with the CSM and PSM. You know, I did the CSM, and after a week, I took the PSM. So it laid the foundation and gave me the momentum I needed to face the PSM. So it was interesting to hear that you did the CAPM and the PMP. That was an amazing one. My question is, even though it has been addressed, but partially. Okay, first, I'm not too sure about the timing. When they show the timing, so that when you're taking your break time, is it that from the beginning, will they show you the complete time or just the time for that first session before your break time? Or the full time will be there, then you would determine, you would now have to calculate when it's already time to take your break, you know?
Okay, I understand. So the countdown clock on the exam is just for you answering the questions for the exam. So when you go to take your break, there's a separate clock for your break time that does not count against you during your exam time.
Yes.
So there's a separate clock for another 10 minutes in between, or in between each section, in between every 60 questions. That does
Good.
not count against you.
That makes sense. So the 10-minute clock kicks in for the breaks. The 230-minute clock, if you stopped for your first break at 170, the clock stops at 170, then a new clock kicks in. And then when that 10 minutes is over, it goes back to your 170 minutes to count down again.
Yes.
Gotcha.
Okay, so when would you know it is time to take your break?
So what did I do?
You know? How would you know? Would it give you a notification it's time to take your break?
Yes. Yes. You get to the end of the 60 questions and it asks you, you completed this section. Do you want to take a break?
Yeah, do you want to? It gives you an option. It doesn't force
Right.
you. You don't have to if you don't. Some
Right, you
people
don't
do the
have
whole, yeah.
It asks you, do you want to take a break?
Okay, and would you say, what would you say is an advantage of you taking your break? What was the advantage to you?
Being able to stretch your legs, because it is a long sit down exam. Being able to just kind of get some fresh air, even though well, for myself, I stay within the facility, but just being able to get outside of that testing environment allowed me to feel a little bit more relaxed. So that's what helped me to take that break, because if I were to power through it, I think I might have burnt out at some point, just for myself.
Okay. And the scenario or situational based questions, what would you say is the percentage of scenario based questions?
90%.
Okay. Okay, so there were some direct questions.
There are a few.
Okay. Okay, and for the calculation again, I know they asked already, but I just wanted to ask, like, for calculation, did you happen to do any calculations?
I didn't have to do calculations, but it helped me to get an answer to how to do how to answer the question. So it's more so, how do you apply the calculations for EVM? How do you read it? The best way to describe it. Well, for myself, I did a little bit of calculation. Just so I knew, I made sure I understood what was being asked of me.
Okay.
An example would be SPI is 1.2. What does it mean? CPI is 0.6. What does it mean? Or your earned value is this, your planned value is this. What does it mean? Then you got to know, okay, I got earned value, I got planned value, I can find SPI. You just mentally take a look. Is earned value greater? Oh, then I'm okay. Is earned value less? Then I'm not, in terms of schedule, things like that.
Mm-hmm.
All right.
Okay, that's
all right.
Thank you.
Awesome. Well, thank you very much. If you do have questions, let us know. But Lawan is a very busy project manager. She manages big projects at home and at work. So we are going to round up by saying a massive thank you to you, Lawan. Thank you so much for coming back and sharing a full hour with us. Please be aware you will get a PDU for this. So be on the lookout. Thank you very much. Appreciate your time, and congrats once again.
Thank you, Phil. Thank you all.
Thank you.